Hi again. Edmund Gruss in Apostles of Denial, the chapter, The Period Under Charles Taze Russell. Russell was known for inserting phrases and whole sentences into the heart of scripture passages. By this method he taught his doctrines. It was in 1913 that the great paraphraser, as he was often called, had no words to paraphrase. It all came about when the Reverend J.J. Ross, pastor of James Street Baptist Church, Hamilton, Ontario, published a tract in June 1912. The tract, Some Facts About the Self-Styled Pastor, Charles Taze Russell, brought action against Ross by Russell. On December 2, 1912, Russell issued a summons charging Ross with criminal defamatory libel. Russell had silenced others this way, but Ross would not back down, for he stood on evidence which could not be refuted. The following are samples of the charges made in Ross's tract. Reverend Russell was known as the crank preacher. That's on page 3. That he never attended the higher schools of learning, knows comparatively nothing of philosophy, systematic or historical theology, and is totally ignorant of the dead languages. These are all from pages 3 and 4 of the pamphlet. As far as his title was concerned, Pastor Russell was never ordained and has no church affiliation. Concerning Russell's divorce, quote, in 1887 he married Miss Marie F. Ackley, who divorced him a few years ago on the ground of cruelty and of having wrong relations with other women. Ross then writes, by the Brooklyn Eagle he stands charged with defrauding his wife of her dower interest, and of influencing the sick and dying to make wills in his favor, with engineering the sale of a property worth $35,000 for $50 for the purpose of defrauding another, and judging from his advertisements of himself, many do not think him normal, and so are persuaded that he is self-deceived. Ross designated Russell's studies in the Scriptures teachings as, quote, the destructive doctrines of one man who is neither a scholar nor a theologian. And the whole system of Russellism is anti-rational, anti-scientific, anti-biblical, anti-Christian, and a deplorable perversion of the gospel of God's dear Son. Russell's suit, in order to win, needed to prove the charges made were not true, whereas Ross had to prove his charges were true or stand guilty as a defamer of character. Ross writes, quote, under oath he, that is Russell, positively and most emphatically denied every charge made against him. The leaflet was read part by part to him, and he was asked by the Crown Attorney, is this true? His answers throughout were no, 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 absolutely untrue. The case came before the grand jury of the High Court of Ontario, March 17, 1913. The only evidence presented was Russell's own testimony under cross-examination by Ross's lawyer. It is clear that the transcript of evidence that Russell actually perjured himself. Let me read that again. It is clear from the transcript of evidence that Russell actually perjured himself. Thus, after the jury compared the charges made with the evidence presented by Russell himself, it found no ground for the libel charge against Ross and handed down the verdict, no bill. The Photodrama of Creation, a film presentation with a synchronization of sound and records, produced by Russell at great expense, was first shown in 1914. This seemingly innocent project was just another propaganda weapon. Russell printed a scenario of the entire photodrama. The frontispiece of the scenario claims that the photodrama is unsectarian and interdenominational. Actually, the film is a clever presentation of Russell's theology. The commentary or narrative, together with the pictures, were successful in winning converts. The creeds of the Orthodox churches were misrepresented. For example, on Russell's favorite denunciation, the doctrine of hell, the following is found depicting orthodoxy. On one page, a picture of the frozen section of Dante's Inferno is made a representative view of orthodoxy. The slide Immediately under this one is a horrible one showing the unbeliever's popular concept of Satan with a pitchfork, tail, horns, and a hideously deformed face. Under Satan's feet are seen the skulls of the departed. Men are also pictured writhing in fire. In the background there are demons in the likeness of Satan. Under this slide there is the caption, Adam and Eve now, creedal theology. On another page, a slide is shown which depicts the heathen god Molech. The statement is found on the page across from the picture that the Orthodox creed idols are worse than the idol Molech. It is no wonder that Orthodox ministers objected to the showing of the photodrama. It was rarely presented after Russell's death. During the last 40 years of Russell's life, it is reported that, quote, he traveled 1,000,000 miles, delivered 30,000 sermons and table talks, many of them 2.5 hours long, wrote over 50,000 pages of advanced biblical exposition, often dictated 1,000 letters per month, managed every department of a worldwide evangelistic campaign employing 700 speakers, end of quote. That quote, by the way, is from The Finnish Mystery on page 57, the original edition, that is 1917 edition. Russell maintained his busy schedule up until the time of his death. His last public discourse was given on October 29, 1916, at a convention in Los Angeles. Russell died on October 31, 1916, on a train en route to Bethel headquarters in Brooklyn. Menta Sturgeon, who accompanied Russell on this journey, called the conductor and porter of the train into the room to watch Russell die. Wrapped in a toga made at his own request, Russell passed from this earthly scene in silence. What about this claim that this depiction of hell from Dante is creedal theology? Well, we've done a video on the original creed of the church, that which is assented to by all church members of the 10 great denominations of Christendom. And you will notice, if you follow closely the words of the Apostles' Creed, there's nothing at all about hell except the reference that Christ went there after his death. Nothing at all as to a description of hell. So there's nothing creedal about the doctrine of hell that unites the Christian churches. This is a misrepresentation. I'm pretty sure Russell knew that. He shows some knowledge in his 6 volumes of the creeds. So it's not as if the nuances of the doctrine of hell and how orthodox this position was, because it is debated. To this day, the doctrine of hell is debated, and the creeds give witness to the fact that it was debated in the early days too. So that needs to be said clearly, because there are still those who stumble over this very same stumbling stone, that if this is the orthodox doctrine of hell and God, we don't want anything to do with it. So many Christians, many millions of Christians, feel the same way. But the debate goes on. I wish that were represented here. That is in Russell's work and in the Finnish Mystery, but it is not. So I'll put in a link to the Finnish Mystery's claim, the claim about Russell himself, that he is the very voice of Jehovah. See you next time.